I want to also ask you about, is there any problem with using a bread yeast?
Okay. Alhamdulillah. When you look back over all the thousands of years, the primary raising agent for bread has been yeast.
Mm,
So there's no prohibition
okay.
on the use of yeast. There's no
Mm,
issue with yeast because yeast is yeast is one of the primary agents used for raising bread.
mm-hmm,
If you don't use yeast, what happens is the bread maintains a flat aspect
mm-hmm.
where you get what
Right.
they sometimes call matzah or matzo. It's like a flat bread. But if you use a raising agent like yeast, you will get the normal bread that you get, whether it's the baguette bread or other types of bread that are raised.
Mm-hmm. Okay, mashallah. Very cool. Um, does,
Now, this brings
mhm,
me to a point because
sure.
a spice was almost brought up, or
Okay.
spices are similar things, condiments or additives. Now, I was reading the other day in Ad-Dalil al-Talib and its commentary by Imam al-Taghlabani, Imam al-Taghlabi, rahimahullah. He died 1133. And when I read over that chapter, it triggered something that had come up before.
Mm,
So he said, intoxicants in the liquid form are najis. I said, okay. So I
mm,
read on. It said, but intoxicants in a non-liquid form, although impermissible, are tahir because in the form of a powder.
uh-huh.
And he said,
Interesting.
like nutmeg. And I thought, oh, subhanallah. So I thought, okay. So I
Okay.
read further, and because the way it was just left there, because it said kajos tib, or bench or henbane, and I thought, okay, so that can't be absolute regarding nutmeg.
Mm-hmm.
So I went digging through and found that yeah, nutmeg in small amounts is permitted because it's an additive in cakes and pastries and foods. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not impermissible mutlaqan. It's not impermissible in absolute sense. But if taken for the purpose of intoxication, or if taken an amount where someone would use it for
Mm-hmm.
intoxicating effects, then it would be impermissible.
Oh.
But it's not altogether impermissible. Now, some of the Shafi'is have said that it's impermissible
Mm-hmm.
in any way, shape, or form, but that's a wider discussion for another time. But for the Hanbalis, like no, in a small amount, it's not because nutmeg is a spice. It's not used. Its primary purpose isn't
Mm-hmm.
intoxication. Just like, for example, the skin of the banana. If someone was to peel the skin of the banana and boil it and do other things to it, you could obtain intoxicating effects
Yeah.
from the skin of the banana.
Mm-hmm.
You could from the skin of the orange as well, but that's not the purpose of it. Yes, if you
Mm-hmm.
did that, that would be impermissible.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still tahir, right? So the orange is still tahir. But if you made it into a muskir, yeah, that's haram,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's you turn the peel into a powder, then sniffed it
Mm-hmm.
as a
Oh,
muskir. Yeah, it would be a muskir,
interesting.
and it's haram, but it's still tahir though. The orange peels are tahir, right?
Oh.
So I wanted to say that because
Mm-hmm.
I had this come up. I think in the past year, this question cropped up a couple of times about nutmeg, and so for some reason that
Mm-hmm.
came up yesterday. And so I wanted to kind of share that just to kind of have that out there for people to know nutmeg's
Mm-hmm.
not absolutely
Mm-hmm.
impermissible.
That's excellent. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khairan. The next question I had was, what is actually the general ruling on going to a restaurant and eating there? And the reason why I asked this is because in the West, especially, you have men and women sitting in the same room and the like. So, what is the ruling on this?
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so we have two things at work. One is the restaurant, and one is the gathering where the meat is being eaten. Okay, with regards to the restaurant, Imam Wafiquddin Qudam rahimahullah in Al-Mughni, under his listing of manly behaviors and things that are not considered masculine or manly behaviors and are thus disliked, he said one of them is going out to eat in public gatherings where you sit in front of the people and you're eating and they see you eating and you eat, right? So this is considered something that takes away muru'ah,
Subhanallah.
manliness. So that's not considered manly, right?
Allahu.
So under his chapter under muru'ah, under manliness in Al-Mughni, is that's not manly, right?
Subhanallah.
So yeah, that's That's definitely, so that's one statement. Then you have within that the restaurant itself. Now, the restaurant itself, if it's a restaurant that's owned by unbelievers, you have a situation in which you may have impermissible and permissible things on the menu.
Yes.
Now, this then brings to mind, some people say, yes, but the Prophet ﷺ said that you should not sit at the table where intoxicants are served. Now, there's two things that can be said about this point that's raised. Number one riwayah of that narrative is da'if. So one riwayah of it is da'if. Secondly, if we take the other narrative of it that's authentic, it means where a table is served, and Al-Munawi and others aren't referring to an entire location. It's a table where it's served. So it just necessarily being present is not a proof. And the indicative proof of this is in Sahih Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ and Anas ibn Malik who went to the house of one of the Jews of Al-Madinah to eat. Now, this is after an attempt had been made on his life by poisoning, but this particular Jew was not hostile. So this is after an attempted poisoning. He goes to his house. He sits down and he eats. Now, as we know, the children of Israel use alcohol in Saturday rituals that they call the Shabbat. So alcohol would have been on the premises.
Right.
But he ate there because alcohol is not on the table. It's not served, and it's not in front of him. So based upon that, it'll be permitted to be there. Now, then the next question comes up. Yes, but there's men and women that are mingling there. Well, now this comes to another ruling, which is the ruling on ikhtilat, which is free mixing. Ikhtilat does not cover the marketplace and these locations. It doesn't cover there. Ikhtilat is to do, mingling like this is to do with private settings and circumstances like that, because we know from the time of the Prophet ﷺ that men and women walked around each other in the market. Men and women were in public around each other.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. It can be established several times. So that does not fall under the ruling of ikhtilat. So that would not be an issue where there'd be issue. The issue would be the muru'ah, the manliness of being going out to eat on a regular basis, because that's not manly. Then it's a restaurant owned by unbelievers. The alcohol issue would not be an issue if it's not on your table and it's not being served to you, and it's not in proximity where you're seated right next to it or something like this. Now, if it's a restaurant owned by Muslims and they sell it, you most certainly shouldn't eat there, because وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ, as the ayah in the Qur'an, that you are not to cooperate on sinfulness and wickedness. So you're not supposed to patronize an establishment where Muslims are engaged in haram, because it encourages them. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, if it was a Muslim restaurant, the guy was Muslim, his name was, Adnan or Abdul Rauf, and he's serving alcohol, yeah, that would be impermissible for you to be involved in that, because you shouldn't patronize that. But if it's an unbeliever, no.
And how about someone who works in the restaurant owned by an unbeliever, and we presume that he will have to serve alcohol in some instances, or he's the cook?
Okay, now this now comes down to the ruling of working for unbelievers and transactions with them. Alhamdulillah. Now, with regards to this situation, your niyyah when working with or for an unbeliever is, your intention is because the halal and the haram is mixed together. Your intention is you're taking from the halal that's in that transaction, whatever that may be, right? You're taking from the halal, whether you're working at a restaurant, or you're working at a grocery store, or you're working at a mini mart, or you're working at a ticket master. Your niyyah is you're taking from that which is halal, while there's haram mixed with it. You're taking from that and nothing else. If you are asked to do things that would be impermissible, your job is to work within the areas that's permissible. So if you work in a grocery store, you don't stack alcohol. You don't prepare haram food. You don't do these things, right? You wouldn't engage in that. You wouldn't serve haram food or drinks to people. You wouldn't do that. But if you're spraying vegetables or if you're mopping on the same aisle that the alcohol's on, that's not impermissible. Or if you have to dust things where you're dusting and you might have to dust something, that's not impermissible. But serving and engaging and carrying that, it would be, because it would fall under the hadith where the Rasulullah cursed 10 things regarding to intoxicants. And one of them is those who carry it. Like, so that the carriers, like the shippers and carriers of it. Then you have, what about the circumstance at the restaurant where people are at the cash registers or they are ringing up orders and doing things like this? Well, now that reaches an ikhtilaf, because the ikhtilaf has to do with whether or not the person in question is directly transacting, or if he's or whether he's acting as an agent on behalf of the restaurant or what have you. Okay. Now, if he's acting as an agent on behalf of the restaurant or the said establishment, then he's only an agent. And although he's doing it on their behalf, so he doesn't bear the responsibility. So if he's ringing up cigarettes or whatever else, right? If though it's a direct transaction where he's acting as that, then he is culpable. Now, what judgment that you take is left to the individual's judgment. I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, because the both rulings are there. And when we asked our teacher, because we asked a couple of teachers about this issue, and they all mentioned the exact same thing in this fashion of just these two rulings like this, laid out like this. And I said it's left to your individual judgment. So it's up to the individual what he does next. If the individual perceives like, no, when I'm doing this, I'm culpable for this because I'm ringing it up, I'm talking to people, and from my circumstance, it's like I'm part of it. I'm actually assisting them, and I'm not doing it. But if someone says, well, no, I'm the agent, it's my job to only act on behalf of them, because if I tell someone where the aisle is, where the toothpaste is, that doesn't mean I work for Colgate.
Yeah.
If they ask me where's aisle 17, where the alcohol is, that doesn't mean I work for Jim Beam. So why would it mean that if I'm ringing something up? Right. So that's the same. So it's left to that also is left to that difference of opinion, which people have to figure out for themselves.
Subhanallah. Now, there are different types of haram products being sold, but I want to just focus on khamr. This specific hadith where it says that Allah has cursed khamr, and then there are different types, like the one who drinks it, pours it, and sells it, and the like. Now,
yes,
the meaning of the hadith, is it stating that this is a major sin or the curse? What is this exactly referring to? Allah's cursed khamr.
All right. Alhamdulillah. There are more than 10 ahadith that mention negative things about khamr. Some of them calling it al-Khaba'ith, the mother of all filth, or the source of all filth. Many different things. Whenever you hear a hadith that makes reference to la'na, la'na in hadith always references a major sin, something egregious in the sight of Allah. So whenever you see la'na like that, it always entails, unless la'na is mentioned in conjunction with other things in which it could be major kufr. But most times in a hadith where you see la'na, like where the Rasulullah mentions in one hadith, like whoever approaches his wife to have anal sex with her, he has his la'na, or he's done kufr, what was sent down on Muhammad, like he's committed kufr. That kufr is not the kufr yukhriju an al-millah or yanqilu an al-millah. It's not that. It's the kufr bin ni'mah. It's a kufr of the major. It's a major sin kufr.
Subhanallah. Right. There's just one final point on this topic of khamr. When an unbeliever converts to Islam, we find in many cases, or most, that those people used to drink. Now, at one point, they will learn that it is impermissible to consume khamr. Now, is it in this case for such converts permissible that they gradually build off from drinking khamr instead of leaving it all at once, which might be hard?
All right, so we're talking about someone coming into Islam and gradually coming down from it. Alhamdulillah, salatu wa rasulillah. When it comes to these type of areas where people enter into Islam, and when people enter into Islam, when you look at the laws around the revelation in the Quran against khamr, the first thing that it mentions is not to make salah while you are in a state of intoxication. Then in another instance, it mentions that the sin in them is greater than the benefit that men take from them. Then the final one is Surah Al-Ma'idah, 5th Surah 90, where it's outwardly prohibited, right? So it's gradual.
Yes.
Now, when that final ayah was revealed, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in, they poured out all their containers. They dispensed with them. They poured it all out. To the point that in the Sahih al-Bukhari, one man came out of his house complaining because some of the water had ran into his house and like ruined some of his furniture. It was that much that was flowing that they poured out. Now, when someone comes into the religion and they are learning about the dietary laws and other affairs, whether or not people like it, people will be growing gradually in their knowledge.
Yes.
They won't be growing suddenly. On the day of the Battle of Uhud, Hamza had drank the night before. So this is gradual. These affairs are gradual. It's not sudden. Would sudden be the best option? That probably would be. But it won't be the option for everybody.
Yes.
And if you look at the revelation of the Quran, it wasn't. Most of the Quran was revealed in its prohibitions and laws outside of Tawheed and Shirk and Salah. Most of it was revealed gradually. So when someone is gradually coming off it, because you have to remember some people that may enter into Islam may be alcoholics.
Yes.
So now it's not just that they casually drink. Now they actually have a chemical dependency.
Yes, exactly.
And in a circumstance like that, they may need to approach an alcohol program counselor or someone like that to get additional help because they have struggles besides just that. It's not just a matter of just leaving it. It's now you have a greater struggle now. For people that don't, in which they were social drinkers or social smokers or social eaters of haram or purveyors in it. There's some people who they've been so used to eating where straight after a meal or with a meal they have wine. This will take time, especially if they come from somewhere like France. This will take time for them to get used to the fact of having a meal and not following it with wine or not having wine with the meal. So this will be something that will take time, but gradually will be phased out of their life. But this will take time.
Yes, absolutely, because some Muslims, they might get a knee-jerk reaction when they hear that someone hasn't fully left off the intoxicants. But
what they don't always remember is that every single one of us that was Muslim came from peoples that were mushriks. Let's look at Egypt. Egypt did not convert to Islam en masse like some other nations. It took hundreds of years before Islam became dominant. It took hundreds of years. Egypt wasn't like Bahrain or Qatar that just converted en masse. That was special. That was something special. But for Egypt, it was over several centuries. So if that's the case with them, then you're obviously going to deal with other kuffar that you find that may require the same considerations. Not because alcohol is halal, not because we don't condemn sin, but because the level of sin that they were wallowing in is going to take time for them to call out of it. Just like not everybody that makes tawbah from a sin finishes and that's the end of it. Some people may make tawbah several times from one sin before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them victory over it. Or several times from a group of sins, because some sins are committed together. So you go outside, you take in some drugs, you come in, you eat something haram, and then you may engage in sexual intercourse with a woman. There's people that have patterns of sin. Now to break that one, you'll have to break all three. So now in the process of breaking all three, what do? Well, you have to gradually get through that. There's people that are going to come into Islam that they have children from previous marriages or relationships. So that has to be dealt with. Right? None of those things, some things will be instantaneous.
Yes.
The rejecting of shirk,
yes.
rejecting of kufr, that's instantaneous. The affirmation of tawheed, that's instantaneous. But there will be other things that will be more developmental that will take time. And something I've seen in the US where people have put the entire revealed law on someone's shoulders.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
And they're not fully purified from what they've come out of. And so it creates additional problems for them. But there's a listing of things that they're responsible for. And some of those things they become responsible for as their knowledge grows. And some things they're responsible for immediately, right? Believing in the 6 pillars of Iman, I believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, right? The day of resurrection, Qadr, the good or the bad. He's responsible for affirming the generalities of those things.
Yes.
But he might not know that there's an angel named Israfil. But by affirming the generality of the malaika, that's enough.
Yeah.
Now, if he finds out about Al-Malik Israfil alayhi salam and he rejected that, yeah, that would be kufr. So sometimes his affirming of the generality of something, this is the mujmal of something.
Yeah.
So he affirms the mujmal, but he might not know the tafasil.
Yeah. So
and as he's learning the more detailed matters, he's gradually introduced to the more detailed matters, although he's affirming the general matters, but the tafasil, the more detailed affairs, he will get into on that particular subject as he gains knowledge. And that's not blameworthy. Yes, that's correct to do with him.
Yeah, for example, if somebody, if a convert starts doing his basics of his salah, he might still not know all of the nullifiers, and he might make these mistakes, but once he finally gets to this point, then he will implement this correctly.
That's correct. There may be people who spend the first 2 years when they're in their salah just saying the dua, subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, or a similar dua that you say when you don't know Surah Al-Fatiha. He might spend the whole time doing that dhikr for like a year or 2 years because he's struggling to learn Fatiha.
Yeah.
So and it might not be until way down the line that finally I've got Surah Al-Fatiha and now I can. It might be way down the line before he's really completed all that. But we have to be mindful of that fact.
Yeah.
And to have these safeguards in place, because someone won't be able to immediately, like Imam Wafiquddin Qudama rahimahullah, he said this in Al-Mughni. He said if someone converts to Islam, he said he should join the salah immediately. Let him just do the postures.
Subhanallah. MashaAllah.
So let's say somebody doesn't know the salah. He doesn't know anything yet. Say, okay, listen, be at the masjid for 1:20.
Wow.
And so he just joins in.
MashaAllah.
This is okay, just join in. Just join in.
Interesting.
Now, when he's not at the masjid, is he doing nafil? Well, no, he can't. he can't do nafil because it doesn't. But he's joining in with a clean heart. But he can't do the nafil yet because he doesn't know anything yet. But listen, man, just come here every day at these times and join in and join in and join in. Now, as he goes, he'll start to realize Subhanallah Rabbil Alim, Subhanallah Rabbil A'la, as he's being taught, and these other affairs that go with it. But initially, he's joining in.
Yes, exactly.
Just like when he's fasting in the month of Ramadan. Okay, let's get you started on Ramadan. Come on, let's go. Now, initially, he might have to build on top of that. Initially, there might be days where he wakes up, he forgets, and he goes the whole day eating without realizing anything. Now, he might be getting reward for that because he made the I'm going to fast tomorrow, but then he forgot that he was fasting, ate the whole day. Allah might have written down that he fasted that day. So we have to be mindful of this fact with people when dealing with their condition.
It is interesting because he has to learn, a convert has to learn so much that at one point they'll be also confusing a lot of ahkam. And because when I was a kid, I remember I used to think that eating would nullify the wudu.
Yeah.
And I was like telling my sister, no, you can't eat your wudu. And I would ask my father, no, that's for fasting. That's for the fast.
Yeah. That's it. These types of things happen. Now, we spend 11, 12 years growing up, learning the revealed law, everything. So by the time we've reached 14, 15, we're the complete article.
Yeah.
Now, think about someone you expect for them to be where you are within a few months, he had
Yes,
15 years.
exactly.
It's going to take him, it might not take him 15 years, but it's certainly going to take him a substantial period of time to get to the point to where he as a layman is where you are as a layman.
Mm,
And you have to be mindful of this fact so as not to overburden people.
exactly.
You expect that he's going to know the tashahud and all these other things and know the difference between the shadda and no shadda, idgham with gunna, idgham without gunna, med lazim, med muttasal, med tabi'i, med layyin. He's like, what? Hold on, what? Med lazim harfi, med lazim ghayru harfi. Is this, huh? What?
Yes.
He's confused. To him, he's just enjoying the recitation of the Quran because it's a shafa for his heart. He doesn't know that the alif lam mim, yeah, you see that? That's med lazim. He doesn't know that yet. And it might not be time for him yet. It might not be time for him yet. He learns what's necessary for him. At each juncture in the life of a Muslim, different things become compulsory in effect that he has to learn.
Yeah.
So when you're 3 or 4, your family teaches you about not touching stuff you're not supposed to touch, right? 4 or 5, don't lie, tell the truth. Finish your food on your plate. Listen to your mother and your father. Don't tease. 6, 7. Now that you're getting your first wudu and your first stuff, you're joining in Fajr and Maghrib, Istinja, right? Now you're learning this. Okay, 8, 9, you're at the ghulam stage. Now you're discharging all your salawat, your other affairs, other matters, but people have to remind you and all this other stuff. You might still be doing some half days when you're fasting Ramadan, half day. By the time you're 15, you should be able to discharge all the days, you know, all your salawat, all your ahkam, all your affairs, right? But that was a slow and careful, deliberate process. If someone comes into Islam, we drop some books off, we leave them, then we're surprised if they get pulled into 7, 8, 9 groups. We're surprised if they get in a cult. We're surprised if they commit terrorist atrocities. Well, what did we think was going to happen to people like Michael Arbalanjo, who wound up killing that drummer with the knives? He's sitting there holding 2 knives in his hand like car keys. And we think, well, where did this guy come from? Now, everyone was excited when he converted to Islam, but now he commits this. No one knows. Well, I don't know where he converted. I don't know. He wasn't with us. Well, it was someone. Because he's quoting Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th Surah 5, and he's using Islamic terminology. It's obvious that he went to someone to become Muslim. Who did he go to? Then all of a sudden, these grainy images crop up that show him converting in a masjid and people shouting Allahu Akbar. He's like, you see, he did convert to Islam amongst you. But what you did is, okay, you finished. All right, here's something fabulous. Here's your candy cane to get lost.
Here's your mushaf and you can go home.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's not it. He should have been assigned a brother, a murshid, or a akh, because the same thing happened when the muhajirin got to Al-Madinah. The muhajirin had been Muslim for 13 years. So they get assigned to one of the Medinese. Why? To discharge some knowledge to them, to give them greater knowledge. So each one of them had a brother. They were paired up with brothers. So someone comes into Islam, he should be assigned a brother. This is not something difficult. Listen, you go on a job at a Kafir law firm or a Kafir business. What happens? You come on as an apprentice, don't you? You have a probationary period, don't you? And during that probationary period, you have what? A supervisor or someone that does what? That shadows you, that shows you the ropes, that teaches you how stuff works. And then after a period of time, they say, okay, now we're going to let you take calls, or now we're going to let you work the register, or now we're going to let you work the grill, or now we're going to let you take a client. Now that's working for your daily bread day to day. We're talking about wudu, istinja, discharging your salah. I've met some of these converts where they haven't even seen anyone make wudu before.
Allah.
How are you? Who brought you into Islam that they didn't show you how to discharge wudu? We were shown the salah. We were shown the wudu. We were shown the stuff. You know, we had to be told this stuff. You know, without being too graphic, you know, I told my kids when they were very small on the toilet, now you have to wash here and here. Right. I told them, listen, make sure to do that. I walked them through that process. So then when they reached a certain age, okay, listen, now you're big enough to where I'm your father. I shouldn't be coming in the bathroom with you now. Now you have to do it yourself. Now, the key is what? Well, I should wash myself to where there's no more yellow and no more brown. That's right. And then you use some pieces of toilet paper to check to make sure that it's gone. When it's all gone, now you can flush the toilet. Now you pull your pants up. Now you wash your hands. That's a whole process.
Yes, absolutely.
These are people that are 33 years old, 37 years old. He's never done any of that.
Yeah, I'm still seeing converts years into the conversion still having problems with istinja.
Yes. And it's because they didn't have a brother assigned to them. And some of these brothers might call themselves Sufis or whatever else. So where was the tariqah during this time? Where was the tariqah during this time? Where were all these people during this time? Where was the murshid during this time? Where was Shaykh al-Tariqah during this time? You were learning how to call people mujassim or kafir or mubtadi' or fasiq or mushabbih, but you weren't learning istinja. So what good are they then? What good are they if you didn't learn all this time? You were going through all that. You just learned how to do tajsim and tashbih on people and takfir and tasfiq and tabdir. So this guy, he's like, yeah, man, I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't have a body. The Salafis are kafir. Whoever doesn't call Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah kafir is kafir and is blaspheming, but you don't know how to wash yourself in the bathroom and you don't know how to make your salah.
Really?
This is what we're dealing with.
True.
But if we try to say that this person should be taught systematically and we have to forgive certain missteps that he's going to make, people treat you like you're making halal haram and halal haram. No one's saying it's halal what he's doing, but I'm saying he has to be pardoned for his missteps that he makes because he's going to do that when he converts to Islam. You're in the middle of a gathering talking and he uses some foul language. He doesn't know that, listen, this is a polite gathering. You're not supposed to necessarily be engaging in foul language. He doesn't know that, right? Or you're in a gathering and he's there and he says, all right, I'll be back in just a second. And he goes outside and he starts smoking marijuana, then comes back inside reeking of weed. He's still new. He's going to say some stuff. You'll meet a Muslim brother where sometimes his breath might smell like scotch because he had a drink after. He's not drunk, but he had a drink after work. Okay, these are mistakes and missteps that people make. I'll give you an example of one that was both funny, but also, alhamdulillah, I'm happy it happened with me because the Muslim brother felt he could talk to me. I'm in the bathroom. I just came out of the stall, made istinja, everything else. I'm washing my hands at the sink and I'm about to start making wudu in the qa'atul wudu, the wudu area, the masjid. The Muslim brother comes out of the stall and he has his pants down, but he's wearing a pair of shorts pulled up. And he takes some water from the faucet in his hands and he sprinkles that water over the shorts where his penis would be. And so I saw that. I thought, okay, I better talk to him. So I pulled his pants up. I said, I said, what, could I ask what you were doing just a second ago? He said, oh yeah, I have to wash myself after bath. I have to make istinja. I said, all right, did anyone explain to you istinja? He said, well, yeah, they told me I got it. And that's what I did. They said, you got to pour water over your private parts. I was like, okay. So I had to explain what private parts entails and what over entails. But it was good, though, that I bumped into him, that we had this conversation. So I started shadowing him. And because of that, he was able to go, oh, yeah. Okay, is it true that I can do this? It's like, yeah, that's true. Well, what about this? I was like, okay, all right, well, listen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what we'll do. Here's your fara'id. I did everything one time, like what we did, right? I said, all right, we're going to do everything once. Then I did it twice. Then I did it 3 times. So you got it? He's like, I think I've got it, but I might have to write it down later. So, okay. So we did the first time again. He wrote everything down. Second time, wrote everything down. Third time, wrote everything down. It's like, all right, I've got it now, right? The salah, walked him through a lot of stuff. It took him months and months and months, but it put it together eventually. And that's the whole point, to where now, okay, I've got enough to where I can look after myself now. Alhamdulillah, I've got that. Can I come to you when I want to do other things as well? I said, yes, you can come to me. So when he wanted to do other things, what's the difference between a hadith and sunnah? Oh, that's a good question. We'll sit down and talk about that. What's the difference between I keep hearing people talking about qira and tilawa. What's that? Okay, all right, well, let's talk about that. What's the difference between this person and that person, and who's Bukhari, and why is that important? Right. So, okay, so, so you have to walk through these things, but it's part of mentoring people. It's part of mentoring. And as I said before, if somebody just looked at, whenever you get a new job, what do you get at your new job? Training. Exactly. Do they mentor you, or do they just say, get started? No, they mentor you.
Sure.
They teach you how things work. This is the office. This is the staff room. If you have a job where you clock in and clock out, this is where you clock in and clock out. This is the computer that you use. This is what you use. This is the fire escape. This is the fire extinguisher in case there's emergency. This is the chemical one. This is the water one. This is the powder one.
Yes.
Right. They walk you through an entire process. You might be, one job I had years back, I was in the probationary period for like 2 months. I didn't get involved with the actual day-to-day stuff until I'd been there for 2 months. Then they said, now we're going to allow you to work with clients. But even then, there was someone sitting with me, watching me type stuff up and everything else. And then once they were sure that I had it, they're like, all right, now we're gonna let you loose now. But now the person he's shadowing me, but he's now doing it remotely. So he's got his computer open watching me. So I don't feel like I'm being watched, but I'm being watched. Why? In case I make mistakes. He says, okay, listen, you remember that last call you had, that last client? Yeah. Okay. That last client, the answer that you gave to the question was correct, but you didn't note up the account before you closed it down. Oh man, I missed it. Yeah. Don't worry. I saved the call. But when we listen to the call later, I'll write down what the notes were and put it in. But just remember, you have to not only close down the account, before you close it down, you have to note it up. Okay. All right. That's fine. Right. So those types of things I had to remember. When you go on break, you have to sign your phone out to a certain code, and your computer has to be in that same code. If they're in different codes, we don't know where you are. We don't know whether you're on lunch or whether you're on break or whether you're taking a bathroom break. Oh, okay. All right. Right. These are things you learn 2 months in. I'm still falling. But now 6 months in, I might mentor another guy. Oh, he's new. Can he sit with you? Yeah, come on. Because now I'm that seasoned. I'm now a junior colleague. So now the new guys that come in, I'm looking after the juniors. I'm looking after the green guys. Well, you have to look at the same way. Exactly. Someone comes into Islam, it's a far more detailed aspect coming into Islam. It's the book of Tahara is long. The book of Salah is long.
Exactly. Longest.
Now you have to walk someone through that entire process. Something that you do 5 times a day. They're not going to start off doing it 5 times a day immediately. It's going to be a slow process.
For us, it might look easy, right? But if you look at it, it's really detailed. Ahkam, the nawaqid, wajibat, arkan.
Yes, all this stuff that we do it without even thinking about.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have to think about, wait a minute, I'm in the second rak'ah. No, we know we're in the second rak'ah because we're in the tashahhud. Okay, the second rak'ah. We're sitting in iftirash, whereas at the end we're sitting in tawarruk later. Like we know all this stuff. They're just like, he's just sitting funny. Maybe something's wrong with his leg. It's like, no, there's real reasons behind all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like I can do salah knowing I can skip this because I know it's not wajib or it's not a rukn.
Yes.
But in their case, it is like a whole new world there.
That's it. And they're just like, I've got to do everything.
Yes.
So they're doing so for them, everything's a nullifier if anything gets left.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, so astaghfirullah. I forgot to say Ameen after Fatiha. It's okay. It is. Oh, I was redoing all the salawat because I kept forgetting Ameen. There'll be times where the new believer, some time will go by in a day and they'll miss Asr. And they won't realize what? Especially in the winter. Wait a minute, hold on. What? It was Asr? Yeah, you missed Asr. Oh, subhanAllah, man. Right? That type of stuff is going to happen. Those things will happen. There'll be times in the summer. There's a Muslim brother. He was new to Islam. He said, I think I might have made a mistake yesterday. I said, what happened? He said, Asr comes after Dhuhr, doesn't it? I said, yes. He said, oh, I've made a mistake. I prayed Asr, then Dhuhr. He said, they're both 4. I just got confused.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like, subhanAllah. But those types of things, they
Yeah.
happen. These mistakes occur.
Mhm.
But you have to let people make those missteps
Mhm.
so that they can get better, and they can gain that expertise. You don't gain any sharpness from not allowing them to build on the knowledge
Mhm.
that they have. They don't gain anything from that.
Mhm.